The Unreliable Narrator is a great storytelling device where the character presents a story that cannot be fully trusted. It's an iconic way to present your film. This unreliability can stem from various sources: mental illness, deception, bias, limited knowledge, memory issues, or even deliberate lies. What this does is creates a really interesting way to tell a story where you're deceiving the audience, letting them on wrong paths, as well as introducing interesting storytelling devices throughout the rest of the story. We're going to talk about all kinds of unreliable narrators in this episode, everything from Leonard Shelby in Memento to Arthur Fleck in Joker, Tyler Durden in Fight Club, Verbal Kint, The Usual Suspects. We'll talk about Amy Dunn, Gone Girl, Rashomon, Patrick Bateman in American Psycho. So many memorable films that have unreliable narrators that present us great twists in some all-time films.
Now, be careful, guys. In order to talk about these unreliable narrators, we're going to be spoiling these movies. So,
spoiler warning. I'm sure you've all seen these already, though. This is the fun part.
But if there is a movie you haven't seen, just be aware when we talk about it, we're going to be spoiling what is the reveal. A lot of these movies end up being big twist movies. Some of them aren't, but some of them are. In The Unreliable Narrator, I think it really works in a powerful way, because audiences tend to associate and connect to the person telling a story. Just like if you're hanging out with friends and a person tells you a story, you're believing that story. Now, objectively, human beings are incapable of 100% objectively remembering their memories correctly. It's more subjective, and it's proven through tests that our memories are more subjective than objective. And so when someone's telling you a story, you generally give them the benefit of the doubt, and you'll believe what they're saying, what they're telling you. That's why audiences, when we're given a narrator or a lead character and they're telling us their story, or we're experiencing the story through their eyes, we will often latch onto them and believe what they're telling us because we are connected to them as the lead. Now, there's a little confusion I saw online going through lists of unreliable narrators. For me to make this work, it has to be the lead of the movie. It has to be the protagonist. It can't be, a villain lying to the protagonist.
100%. Yeah, usually your unreliable narrator, oftentimes they're actually narrating the film.
Yes.
And speaking to camera often. Fight Club's a great example of an unreliable narrator talking to camera, talking and narrating voiceover. American Psycho's like that as well, but not always. Arthur Fleck in Joker is a great example of a character who's an unreliable narrator because of his mental health and his mental psychosis, but he's not talking to the audience. But still, his perception of things, which is connecting, like you said, like the human complexity of mirroring our emotions and the things we think we remembering differently. That's exactly the type of narrator that Arthur Fleck is.
And then we have the Rashomon effect, which is an actual psychological term based upon the Akira Kurosawa film Rashomon, where various accounts of the same story can change based upon each person telling their version of events, because in each person's eyes, they are the protagonist of their story. So their version is going to be biased towards them and not completely true. And so that's something where they aren't maliciously telling the story incorrectly. They're just remembering it subjectively instead of objectively.
The Last Duel is a great example of that kind of storytelling, where we have three different storytelling devices, a triptych story of three different characters, their perspectives. One is the actual truth at the end, but Jodie Comer's character is the truth. But the other two characters, played by Matt Damon and then Adam Driver, their stories are similar, but there are a lot of inconsistencies in their memories, make themselves feel like the heroes of their story when they're really not.
Yeah, everybody is the protagonist of their own story, so that changes everything. Now, there's a lot of categories. I feel like the main categories, let me know what you think about this list, James.
Oh, I'm so excited to hear about it.
We have the mental illness, unreliable narrator. We have the liars, so the villainous characters who are lying to us, or not even villainous, but they are telling a version of events that they know isn't true. And then we have the conflicting stories, the Rashomon effect. And then we have ghosts.
So, the mental illness one, I think that's too vague of a term, and it's just like takes away from the more complexity of a character. Like, so give me an example of a mental illness
Shutter Island.
Shutter Island, sure.
Yes.
That's one where, sure, I'll give you mental illness, but also in a way a little more complex. You know, I think that...
Well, what category? And I know this is just a generalized category name.
I feel like Teddy Daniels in that film, who is mentally unstable, mentally ill because of the trauma of his past, is a self-preservationist at the end of the day. In order to be able to live with himself, he creates these lies. So I think that's involved with mental illness, but I think like self-preservation is really the main point of his mental illness. That's why it was developed.
True, but I would say the umbrella is mental illness for a lot of these films.
I just don't like calling it just mental illness.
I know, but it's just like we need a term for like what these ones are.
I'm
talking A Beautiful Mind.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
We can go. Yeah, we don't have to.
There's subgenres inside of that category, but just to organize it.
Yeah. Okay, but yeah, it's an umbrella.
How
term.
about we start with that one, this category, because I think it's the most interesting category.
Okay, let's do it. Let's start with the madman. How about we call it the madman?
The madman. Okay. All right.
Psychologically flawed person, unstable. Obviously, Teddy Daniels, someone who has hallucinations. Teddy Daniels passed in Shutter Island. Again, spoiling the fuck out of
these movies.
His wife killed their children. She was mentally unstable. She needed help. Suffered from depression, delusions, all kinds of things. Kills their children. Teddy discovers this when he comes home from work, from a trip. And
Andrew discovers this.
Andrew Ladis, who really is Teddy's real name, discovers his wife had killed their 3 children. And so what does he do? He kills his wife. And what does he do after that? He creates a whole fake world, basically, to deal and cope with the trauma of everything that's happened. So he himself has become insanely psychologically flawed. And in order to try to bring him out of this psychosis, after many attempts, the doctors on the island, which is really a mental health facility, a mental illness facility, are going along with this ruse, going along with this play of acting out what's going on in his mind, of being Teddy Daniels, a respected detective, an investigator, trying to solve a missing person on this island. Really, at the end of the day, there is no missing person. He's not an investigator anymore. And his mental health is this fake character. But if he can remember who he is, what he's done, and why he created Teddy Daniels, that will be the breakthrough to help promote this type of treatment for these patients versus just lobotomizing them.
Yes, and the reason why, what's unique about this kind of storytelling, and there's a lot of movies on this portion of the list, is the audience is along for the ride with our protagonist because we're seeing everything through their eyes. And that's why something like Fight Club works so well, because we are following the narrator, and we believe everything that the narrator is telling us is true because the narrator believes it to be true. And we are being denied the information about who Tyler Durden is and who he really is because the narrator is being denied that information by himself, by his own psyche. And so the only way this kind of storytelling works is if we are inserted into the same perspective of the lead character. We're seeing events through their eyes. We're seeing things take place, and we're seeing them react to things, and it's only their personal subjective perspective. We're not looking at it from anybody else's eyes, and that's why it works. That's why Fight Club works so well, and that's why the twist is so shocking, because we believe that Tyler Durden is a different character. We believe that Tyler Durden is someone different. That's why casting Brad Pitt works so well, because Tyler is so influential and so cool and suave and sexy and the ideal man in a lot of ways. The audience's attraction to him helps cement the illusion that he's real. Even though we get breadcrumbs and little hints that Tyler Durden is a figment of his imagination, we still believe your first time watching Fight Club that Tyler Durden is a separate character from narrator.
It's a great example. You're in narrator's perspective that whole film, even in the finale, even when he's talking to Tyler, understanding that it's a figment of his imagination. Arthur Fleck in Joker is a different example of a madman, a mentally unstable character who's your unreliable narrator, but lacks the voiceover narration of a movie like Fight Club, of a movie like American Psycho. more like Shutter Island, where there really isn't too much voiceover narration, more stories and flashbacks. A lot of unreliable narrating in movies is done through memories and flashbacks. But Arthur Fleck, the Joker, purely through his perspective, we see how much of a madman he is and how distorted and unreliable his reality is because of his mental illness. You know, this is all connected to Sophie, his neighbor, played by Zazie Beetz, who he has these, imagines these romantic situations with, the situations in the elevator, in the hallway, in going on dates with her and laughing with her and her liking him and kissing and experiencing these intimate moments with a character who, reality, once his world is shattered, it doesn't exist. Just like his mother had those delusions about, you could argue, Thomas Wayne, the same kinds of delusions that they were in a relationship. They had a thing in the past. They had a fling. It'd be crazy. That's why she's always writing letters to Thomas Wayne. Arthur's the same situation. Also, very much the fantasies about appearing on the Murray Franklin show. You know, the opening appearance on Murray Franklin when he's sitting in his bed with his mother is a stark example of what this guy's mind is like. We all imagine situations of like, oh, what would it be like if I was on The Price is Right, or if I was in this, or I did this, or I knew this person. But Arthur's imagination and his delusions are so powerful, he actually feels like he's been on that show. And that's why that POV of him being on the Murray Franklin show is so interesting and so powerful. It's palpable how unhinged it is in a way and how cringeworthy it can be, because the interactions between him and Murray are only the kinds of interactions that would exist in his mind. The awkward social things, the hugging him at the end of their thing. And I wish I had a son like you. That's stuff that doesn't happen on a talk show. But in Arthur's mind, it happens until he starts to realize, and we get the reveal of, he doesn't actually know Sophie. He doesn't actually know Murray until he goes on the show later on. And so that's a character whose unreliable narration through his perspective of his mental unhinged in his mental health shows us perceptions and the realities that don't exist.
And Todd Phillips shows you that his fantasies are unreliable with the Murray fantasy. And so it's not, that twist isn't out of left field. And the movie works really well because we all imagine scenarios. You know, we imagine things of like future events and things that we would like to happen. But for him, when he imagines them, they feel as real moments. And a film that I think is one of the best versions of the Unreliable Narrator that's come out in the last 10 years or so is The Father, starring Anthony Hopkins, which he won an Oscar for.
Great. Yeah, great pickup.
Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't even
so
think of that.
The Father is about a man who's suffering through dementia. And unlike any other version of this story that we've seen before, which are all objective point of views watching people suffer through dementia, and this has been portrayed in countless films like Amour and The Savages and films like that, where the characters are dealing with their loved one who's suffering through the mental illness. In this film, The Father, the audience is put into the mental perspective of the father. So Anthony Hopkins' character is the person we see all the events through. And so the audience is experiencing the deterioration of his mind just as though someone who is suffering from the illness does. And so this film blends together time and space and confusion, and you become just as confused as an audience member as a person suffering through dementia. So characters show up in scenes and the audience has never met them before, even though they're his children. So like Olivia Colman and a couple other actors, they play his kids, and they show up in a scene, and he's like, "Who are you people?" And the audience has the exact same perspective because we've never seen them in the movie yet. This is our first time seeing them, and so from someone suffering through dementia, they put us into the perspective of that person, of when they see even their own children, they're strangers, and also an inability to understand time as it's passing by. One moment, his kids are children, and then the next time he sees them, they're older. Things like this, and not remembering anything, and walking into a room and not recognizing it. It's his home, but as an audience member, we're just like him. We've never seen this space before, so it's new to us. So the audience is like, where are we? That film was such a brilliant depiction of the mental illness, and I think one of the prime examples of an unreliable narrator who isn't maliciously lying to the audience. They just don't understand reality as it's coming to them.
That performance is so good, too.
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's a lot of controversy when he won the Oscar in terms of he's already been nominated, won a few times, and he's such an established actor, and give it to someone younger or more, or like in a different movie. But man, that movie, his performance is as good as when he's Hannibal Lecter. And there's such different performances.
Yeah.
I mean, by the end of the film, when Anthony Hopkins is crying for his mommy, I want my mommy. I was drenched in tears. I was devastated. I was heartbroken. It's so powerful. It's such a great performance. And I think that's so integral to being an unreliable narrator you have to sell it to the audience.
Yes.
You can't let them on what's going on, whether you're unaware of what's going on, like narrator in Fight Club, or you're unaware because mentally your brain just can't process real memory anymore and reality, like Anthony Hopkins' character in The Father, or you're Patrick Bateman, and you know the things you're doing are insane, but you can't help it anyways. So there's a lot of different types of this mental illness, mental health, madman, unreliable narrator. And I think that's a great example of one that's not someone who's malicious. He's not a serial killer. He's not evil. It's just his brain is deteriorating. And the filmmaking in that film as well is excellent in terms of adjusting the sets, changing the lighting, changing the way the furniture is laid out in different sequences of the same home, not recognizing anything, because that's what it would feel like. Why this furniture is different. I don't feel like I'm home anymore, even though I am at my home, and my children are telling me I am home. That movie is so incredibly powerful. If you've never seen The Father, oh my goodness, what a film.
And it only works because they shot everything through his perspective. There are no scenes, and it wouldn't work. It would stop the illusion if they cut away to a scene of Olivia Colman and her husband in the kitchen talking to themselves, because that wouldn't work. That would make it objective. But they keep it subjective through his perception. So when he sees people, he's seeing people talk behind his back, but the audience isn't there with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think A Clockwork Orange is another good example of an unreliable narrator, but also connects to mental illness, because Alex, played by Malcolm McDowell in the film, narrates pretty much the whole film, as well as his mental illness is more social detachment, sociopathic detachment from morality, from ethics, having no remorse for his actions. And he takes the audience on this crazy ride where the violence he's committing is enticing and interesting aesthetically. Obviously, some sequences are horrible to watch, but there's something about the violence in the film that makes it alluring and scary to that extent, because it's alluring. And he's an unreliable narrator who never admits wrong, really, and he's consistently demonizing the system that oppresses him because it won't let him commit the acts of violence that he wants to commit. It's a really interesting character in terms of his unreliable narration, because he always thinks he's in the right, despite the things he's doing are terrible, horrible things in the world.
And he's his perspective was shaped by the world he lives in.
So ironic.
Yeah, that's it. It wasn't that he was born like this; it's the world made him like this. And there's a really great film. I'm not sure if everybody's seen it, but Secret Window with Johnny Depp.
I love that movie.
Based on the Stephen King novel. Spoilers. This is a film closer to Fight Club than any other on this list, where he plays a novelist struggling with writing a new novel, and then he steals a manuscript from a man played by John Turturro, or the John Turturro accuses him of stealing his manuscript, and they have this back and forth, this cat and mouse game where
Cat in the mouth.
Turturro's been torments him and threatens him, and ultimately starts killing people. And it's revealed by the end that Turturro's character never existed. It was always Johnny Depp, and this persona was within his mind. And in his isolation, he's turned into a psychotic killer, and burying his victims in the cornfield of his backyard. It's a really great twist. I love the film, and it's a perfect example of an unreliable narrator where we think our character, the protagonist, is a victim of strange circumstances, but in reality, he's also the creator of it.
I love how his other persona is basically Rango.
Yeah.
If Rango was a serial killer
and loved corn.
That's a good one. You know, I think that movie's really cool. It's connected to Fight Club absolutely because of the insomnia too.
Yeah.
Which is really an interesting connection with those two characters where, you know, in Fight Club, narrator can't sleep. Is that one of the reasons why he's developing this other persona? We've done a great breakdown years ago on Fight Club. Like that was 2020. I think we did like
Epic
a 4-hour episode on Fincher, and then an individual episode on Fight Club, which was a lot of fun. But Fight Club's always been one of my favorite movies, and I think the twist is so fantastic. And I really like Unreliable Narrator movies because they're so rewatchable. Insanely rewatchable. I mean, think of how many times you've seen these movies. How many times have you seen Fight Club? How many times have you seen American Psycho?
A lot.
Because the thing with Unreliable Narrators as a storytelling device is there are so many hints and clues spread out throughout the films, if it's done well, where next time you watch the film, you're picking up on nuggets. Even the 10th, 20th time you watch the movie, you're like, oh, I never noticed that little nugget of detail that's so small, it's minuscule, but it's a clue of what's happening and going on in this film. And I think that's one of the reasons why they're so rewatchable. Also, rewatching an Unreliable Narrator film is so fun because you get to experience it from the perspective of knowing everything this character is doing is not true. And you can really see what either they're hiding from the audience as a character for self-preservation, or they're hiding from themselves, unbeknownst to them, subconsciously, something they're hiding from themselves. And you get to experience the scenes in a different way from a different perspective of knowing what's false and what's true.
There's a Zack Snyder film that applies to this category as well, and that's Sucker Punch.
Good pick.
Where a bunch of girls trapped in this prison mental health facility start going on these fantastical adventures, taking out gigantic monsters and bad guys in these unbelievably fantastical settings and environments, portraying like super abilities and these gigantic action scenes which are larger than life, ultimately revealed as a coping mechanism of a fantasy world in which our lead character is imagining and living within these fantasies of these sequences which explain what she's doing and what she's doing in reality. And the characters in the mental institution are represented as different characters in her fantasy world. This is a really great film which depicts the difference between reality and fantasy and how it's being used as a coping mechanism for our lead character.
Before I continue, check out this amazing poster over my shoulder inside this beautiful light box as well. It's double-sided, so it looks like a movie theater quality poster because it is movie theater quality. And this is from our great friends at movieposters.com. Use our code RAIDERS10 at checkout today to get 10% off your order at checkout. And I got a notification earlier today that someone used our code in our affiliate link to buy a poster, which means we got a commission. So if you use our affiliate link in the episode description, we get a cut of the action, guys, at movieposters.com. That always puts a smile on my face when I see that someone has used it. So movieposters.com, Raiders10 at checkout. Get those holiday posters. Don't forget to use our affiliate link so they know you got there because of us. All right, there's another kind of a hybrid Unreliable Narrator because it's a blend of psychological illness, mental illness, but also someone who embellishes and when they're aware of what they're doing are preserving themselves, but also preserving the storyline that they're living in, which is false. And that's Leonard Shelby in Memento.
Yes.
Nolan's breakthrough film from 2000. Guy Pearce plays Leonard Shelby. He's afflicted with anterograde amnesia. After a home invasion leaves his wife killed, he can't form memories for short-term memory. So that's why this character is covered in tattoos. He writes notes down constantly because he's trying to find the killer of his wife. Narrative unfolds in reverse chronological order for the color sequences and forwards chronological order in black and white sequences. Nolan did this to mimic the short-term memory loss, but not only is the character an unreliable narrator, but the story and the structure of the film itself is an unreliable narrator, which is, I think, makes it even more complex in a fascinating and really genius way. Now, being unable to form memories, he relies on, at the time of the film, Polaroid cameras were big in the 2000s and 2000s. Yeah. So Polaroid cameras were big for him, for Leonard, because he could take a photo of a character, write a note on it, give himself some clues or information for when he loses this memory to be able to have something to look at and some notes, and it's his handwriting, so he trusts himself. It's a character who's an unreliable narrator to himself, which is really interesting because he's consistently lying. And the big twist of the film of him having already solved the murder. He's already caught his wife's killer.
John G.
But he consistently wants to keep this illusion of solving this murder alive because that's all he has left. Without trying to solve the crime of who killed his wife, he'll just be stuck in a mental institution. And I think it's really fascinating because he's constantly lying to himself to get this going. And in a way, he himself is a serial killer. Mm-hmm. He's a serial killer of John G's and kind of anyone who gets in his path. He does terrible things.
You've done terrible things.
It's really interesting. The character, the first time I watched this movie, even at the end, I still felt empathetic towards him. I felt like he was a hero. Mm-hmm. Even when I found out that he's a murderer too. But the more and more times you watch Memento, you look at Leonard's story as not tragic but malicious, despite the tragedy that happened to him. And he's trapped himself in this eternal manipulation of fact and fiction that he can never escape from.
And he manipulating himself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the story itself is an unreliable narrator classic. The character is an unreliable narrator to himself because he's lying about facts that he doesn't want to be true.
Yeah. And the film only works because Nolan had the foresight to realize that for the events that are for the narrative that's going in reverse, it only works if the audience is given the same information as Leonard and denied the same information as Leonard. So we are always on our toes, just like Leonard is. We only know as much as he ever knows. He's
similar to Andrew Latis' Teddy Daniels because a lot of this is formulated because of the story of Sammy Jenkins. The story he tells himself when he used to be an insurance investigator, thinking this guy who had a similar illness was faking it and trying to prove that he was wrong. But a lot of it's about his own guilt about his wife's death, about the insulin overdose, and how he alters evidence. I think it's a really interesting character. This is arguably still one of Nolan's best screenplays, based on the short story that his brother Jonathan Nolan wrote. And I think it's great. It's just so clever. You know, Nolan's always playing with time in his movies, even from his first big feature here. Obviously, he made Fallen, but I'm talking about a $2 million budget here with the studio. Taking such a swing at such a complex idea, forwards and backwards storytelling, and then this crazy twist where your character has put themselves in a loop of serial killing. It's so fucking genius. I love it so much.
And speaking of guilt, we have another plot, an unreliable narrator fueled by the guilt of an action happening before, and that's The Machinist, starring Christian Bale. And this is the movie where he famously dropped to like 130 pounds, and that's very low for someone who's over 6 feet tall. And then in this film, he plays an insomniac, not dissimilar from Tyler Durden, although he doesn't have a split personality per se. But in this insomniac-fueled story, this man seems to be incapable of feeling anything and suffering from not just insomnia but intense depression. And he's confusing events, and he befriends a waitress at a local diner played by Jennifer Jason Leigh. And we end up learning that he's creating this false narrative that he's living within in order to escape the guilt that he accidentally killed someone while driving drunk. He killed a child. And to deal with the trauma, he has escaped the memory and created this new fantasy that he's living within. And he's incapable of eating. He can't sleep, and that's why he's lost so much weight. And it's an incredible reveal and a great twist at the end of the film.
It's the second time he killed someone drunk driving in movies.
Yeah. Fucking Out of the Furnace.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one. And then a really famous example of the silent film era heavily influencing Shutter Island, and that's The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, where our lead character enters this fantastical world through this doorway, kind of like Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe style. And when he enters this doorway, he enters this strange, fantastical world of all sorts of things, conspiracies, monstrous beings and characters, and he's trying to uncover this plot of conspiracy, and it's ultimately revealed that he's actually a patient within a mental institution, and all of that was a framework that he built within the fantasy of his own mind to deal with his mental illness. So obviously, this is I don't think if Shutter Island would exist if it wasn't for this film existing, but it has very much the same kind of story.
It's a great point. And I mean, you can't talk about characters with mental illness without talking about Patrick Bateman from Mary Harron's American Psycho, also in 2000, which we all know is just one of the most beloved black comedy horror films ever made. Patrick Bateman, so iconic, still relevant today. You still see the memes, you see the scenes everywhere. And after 20 watches, man, this movie is hysterical. But it's a character who, the way they tell the story is really interesting, where if the first act, it's pretty linear in terms of like, this guy's a serial killer. He's committing these murders. He's into it. He knows who he is. But as the film unfolds, he goes through hallucinations. He starts to lose his mind. He starts to wonder, am I actually killing people? Why is nobody noticing what I'm doing? To the point
Feed me,
where...
cat.
Huh?
Feed me, cat.
Exactly. To the point where he thinks he's being chased around by a helicopter by the end of the film and hiding inside of the lobby of a building, calling his lawyer saying he's killed all these people, and seeing him at the bar the next day.
The diary.
Exactly, the diary in the drawer. I mean, did he actually kill Paul Allen? Is a huge mystery in the film. And Mary Harron has gone on record saying that Patrick Bateman killed everybody in the movie. That was the intention of the filmmakers and the writers. But still, it's fun, the ambiguity here, the madness of Patrick Bateman, whether he knows if he's done all of these things or not. When he goes back to Paul Allen's apartment and it looks totally different and there's nothing in the closet and it's being shown for sale. I mean, his condo, which overlooks the park.
Slightly more expensive than mine. And the diary that, what's her name in the film?
Chloe Sevigny.
Yeah. I can't remember. That she uncovers, and the diary contains drawings and illustrations of the murders that take place in the film. So is he doodling what he did already, or is he just doodling his fantasies?
Plus, sequences and scenes like the business card scene, almost killing the guy in the urinals, bodies disappearing, the fact that he chases someone down a hallway and drops a chainsaw down a stairwell in a public apartment.
The trail of blood in the hotel lobby.
These things are so interesting, and the voiceover narration adds so much to the unreliable narration. You know, I think what I've read from Mary Harron when we talked about this movie is the intention is he's committing these murders, but because everyone's so full of themselves and so self-centered and only cares about what's going on in their own life, no one's noticing the murders. No one's noticing the people going missing. And everyone's acting like nothing's going on. Nothing's wrong.
Everyone's so superficial they can't see what's going on in front of them. Yeah.
I love Patrick Bateman so much. And the uncertainty in the plot is one of the greatest components. I think it thrives in that ambiguity, in that uncertainty, especially the last 10 minutes when he confronts the lawyer and he tells him, I had lunch with Paul Allen. Like Paul Allen's alive. I just had lunch with him. What do you mean, you stupid? Listen to me, you stupid bastard. Why not? Why not? And then his final monologue is really fascinating. But in general, I think that as an unreliable narrator, this is such a unique take on it and such one of the funnest there is to watch.
Yeah, one of my favorite films in this category is Darren Aronofsky's Black Swan, which shows the effect of obsession and psychosis on a person. Natalie Portman's character is so obsessed about being perfect for the Black Swan ballet that she starts hallucinating events, whether it be slowly turning into the Black Swan physically, pulling a feather out of her neck and her ankles, her knees bending backward in bird-like fashion, to even having an intimate scene with Mila Kunis's character, and on top of that, seeing herself and other people in the streets, on the subway, hallucinating all sorts of strange imagery and reflections, culminating into the big finale where she does believe she turns physically into the Black Swan during the ballet performance. This is all an incredible display of the mind's effect on a person, and as a first-time viewer watching this film, you're like, is she really turning into the swan? Is she really seeing these things? Are these things real? You believe that she and Mila Kunis had this scene, but then she wakes up alone in bed and Mila Kunis.
Did you have a naughty dream about me?
Did you have a wet dream about me? Oh, it was. It's a great example of a character not wanting to be experiencing what she's experiencing, and then the truth being revealed to them slowly, and how horrifying it is to them. But also just trying to, in her character, in a way, brushes everything under the rug because what's important is being perfect in the ballet. And so I'm just gonna everything that's crazy that I'm dealing with, I'm just gonna keep burying it because I have to be perfect. It's incredible
Until it explodes.
Yeah, and then she even believes that she killed Mila Kunis' character in her dressing room.
Yeah.
Again, not true.
What a third act.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite final 20 minutes of a movie ever.
There's something interesting about the self-deception of characters. That's a character who's self-deceiving herself, doesn't realize it. Tyler Durden, a great example of self-deception as well. Self-deception for Tyler Durden extends to, he's actually Tyler Durden. He's in charge of the chaos that's happening. He's in charge of the crimes being committed. And in a way, his self-deception takes the blame off himself to keep doing it. And it's his way of fighting back at the establishment, fighting back at the system. But for him, I think it's interesting because it takes the blame away from him in his own eyes to put it off onto somebody else, to put it off onto Tyler Durden, played by Brad Pitt, versus understanding that it's actually him who's creating this chaos. He's the one complicit. He's the one in charge.
Love that, man.
Yeah, self-deception's so fun to watch.
Now, let's talk about deception. After our intermission,
Ooh.
I want to talk about the liars of
The
Unreliable.
embellishers,
Yes,
the
liars.
self-preservers.
Yes.
Because there's so many more. We haven't even talked about Gone Girl. We haven't even talked about
Usual
the
suspects.
usual suspects. Oh, man, the witnesses in Rashomon. And then don't worry, we'll get into the supernatural, too. We'll talk about the Sixth Sense eventually as well, and so many other characters and movies that deal with unreliable narration, even Jordan Belfort and Wolf of Wall Street. But before we continue, the best way to support Raiders of the Lost Podcast, you know what to do. Go to patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. You get access to exclusive content that posts only on there. Can't find it anywhere else. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, nowhere. As well as ad-free versions of every single episode, bonus episodes, access to our Discord, watch parties, all kinds of fun stuff. We have 5 different tiers of membership. There is a cheap one that for just $10 for an entire year, you can have access to our Patreon and access to that bonus content. So sign up today at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. It's literally how we pay the bills. So thank you so much to everyone who is a part of our membership program. Leaving those 5-star ratings and reviews on Spotify and Apple are so integral to our show's success and reputability. I love to read them out. I'll read a written review out on Apple Podcasts in just a minute. Spotify, click that 5-star rating. We'd really appreciate it. As well as following us on all platforms. YouTube, subscribe there, leave comments and likes. Instagram, TikTok. That's how we get these cool jobs. We got flown to London by Black Bear Pictures for Shelta because we have such a great fan base on Instagram and TikTok, and you guys interact and engage. So thank you to everyone who does that, and keep it going.
This episode, like always, is sponsored by our friends at movieposters.com, the #1 place to get your posters online today. Use our promo code Raiders10. That will always get you 10% off your orders, as well as the affiliate link in the description of this episode and our social media bio. That gives James and I a little cut of the action. Much appreciated. Movieposters.com has a gigantic library of every film and TV show imaginable for all you fans of cinema and television. You can get all sorts of sizes for posters, as well as frames, and even backlit frames like the one behind James. Look at that double-sided Sinners poster, backlit. Makes your home look like a movie theater. They have all sorts of classic film posters, original prints from your favorite Hollywood movies, international posters, and alternate designs from really cool artists. Go to movieposters.com for all of your poster needs. That's what we do. They got everything you want, high quality, really great prices, made even better thanks to our promo code Raiders10 to always get 10% off your orders. Use the affiliate link and get your posters today.
Alrighty, you know what time it is. The intermission time. Let's begin with the movie quotes competition. Anthony, are you ready?
I'm ready.
To get stumped, hopefully. Here we go. We're reviving a canceled undercover project from the 80s and revamping it for modern times. The people behind this lack creativity, and they've run out of ideas. So what they do now is just recycle shit from the past and hope that nobody will notice.
This sounds like a meta quote about Hollywood.
Sure is.
Is it a Kevin Smith movie?
No.
I don't know.
21 Jump Street.
Gotcha.
The police commissioner or whoever says that, yeah.
All right, here's mine. You ain't gotta love me, but you gotta know that I love you.
Sounds toxic.
It's
just kidding.
It's a little toxic.
You ain't gotta love me. You know I love you. I don't know.
Moonlight.
Oh.
His mom. Talking to his mom.
It's a good movie.
Good movie.
Guess this movie release year, Anthony. Moonrise Kingdom.
Moonrise Kingdom was 2013?
12. You're right there, man.
It's close. What year did 28 Days Later come out?
28 Days Later. That was 01 or 02? 01 or 02? 2002.
2002 is right.
Let's go, baby. Let's go.
Nice job.
Okay. Fun one here. How many movies can you name that have 10 in the title?
10 in the title.
Just 10 in the title.
Okay. 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Bam.
10. 10 Commandments.
10. There you go.
10. Starter for 10?
What was it?
Starter for 10?
Starter for 10. Is that a movie? Let me check.
Or is it Starter of 10? Starter for 7?
Starter for 10. There you
Starter
go.
for 10.
All right, there we go.
Nice. It wasn't even on James's list.
James McAvoy. There we go. We're cooking. We got 3.
We're cooking. 10. Tenet.
Doesn't count. Funny, but doesn't count.
10 Things I Hate About You.
Bam.
The Whole 10 Yards.
It's the whole 9 yards.
Sequel.
Oh, is there a sequel? Oh,
The Whole 10 Yards.
wow. Okay, good for you.
They made a sequel.
You're doing great.
Thanks, man. Saw 10. Or is it the Saw X count?
Nope.
No.
Nope, doesn't count.
All right. 10. Something 10.
You're doing great, but I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to stop there.
No, yeah, I'm just gonna be. I can't think of any more.
We got The Woman in Cabin 10,
Uh-huh.
Shang-Chi and the 10 Rings, Legend of the 10 Rings. What else would be a popular one? Let me pull up this list. 10 Brothers, 10 Till Noon.
I don't know those.
Me neither.
I think I did pretty good.
You did really good, yeah.
Yeah.
Of all the ones I found,
I even stumped you. I made you question the list too.
you made me question, but you got one. 10 Years. I guess that's a movie. No, really good job.
Thank you.
Really, really good stuff. Okay.
What is the name of Cillian Murphy's character in 28 Days Later?
Jim.
Yes.
Yeah. Jim. Better see him in upcoming sequel soon. I wonder if he's going to be in Bone Temple.
We'll see.
We got to see that soon. I'm going to see it this weekend. Okay.
I can't believe it's already out.
Yeah, it comes
I can't
out,
believe this.
yeah, tonight.
I didn't even realize until the other day that it's out.
Now, Anthony, do we have any unsubscribes or any haters you'd like to bring up on the show?
We do. First up, Connor on our last news episode. Place Beyond the Pines mention. And no, put your hands in the air. Unsubscribed.
The money in the bag.
Right in the back. Don't fucking stop. Like this up.
Put your hands in the air.
Colvin. I'm not going to lie. When I found out about a podcast category in the Golden Globes, I was livid that they didn't nominate y'all. Dear Paramount, unsubscribed.
Same.
Yeah. That's it for this week.
All right, we have a
Not that
great
many. We just recorded.
5-star written review on Apple Podcasts from Evan Gambrel. He wrote, subject line, Joe Carnahan. Love you guys, your reviews and recent interviews. I was recently watching A-Team and thought maybe Carnahan would be a great choice to helm a Batman movie, in the new DCU. Thoughts? I think that'd be cool as fuck.
Brutal.
I mean, I think the Rip is going to absolutely rip. His new movie on Netflix with Matt and Ben. I think it's going to be excellent.
Yeah.
He's a great action filmmaker. So I would definitely pay to see a fucking Joe Carnahan Batman movie. That sounds awesome.
Oh, fucking.
That'd be a great choice.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for leaving that written review on Apple Podcasts, which is the only place you can leave written reviews. It is what it is.
Yes.
But we love when people go there to do it. And you will be immortalized on the show forever if you leave a written review, and I'll read it. I will read it with my movie trailer voice. Anthony, what is your streaming recommendation for this episode?
Last night I watched The Boy and the Heron on HBO Max.
Finally.
Really good movie.
Been
really
trying
good.
to get you to do that for 3 years now. 2 years. I saw it in IMAX when it came out. It was great.
Congrats.
Thanks.
Congrats, man.
You turn on. You're like, you know what? It sounds boring. No, thank you.
I've seen more Miyazaki movies than you have, so you can't say that.
It's debatable. All right, Anthony, what is your... Oh, yeah, I already did. My recommendation is Caught Stealing on Netflix. Guys, this is one of my favorites from 2025. Flew under the radar. It's so fun. Energetic. Great action. Great characters. Incredible actors in it as well. I loved it. All right, let's get back into our episode on Unreliable Narrators. Now, you teased something pretty specific. I forget what you teased.
So there's the
liar.
The next category. So there's the liars, but then there's the people who are incorrect about their story. They're separate. So the liars are the people who are maliciously and intentionally lying. We'll start with that
it's a mix of self-preservation and embellishing.
Yeah, but again, the other category is the Rashomon effect, where they think they're right.
Yeah, that's more innocent too. You can argue like Room is like that, Forrest Gump is like that.
Exactly. So they think they're right, but they might not be true.
Atonement.
But let's start with the liars. No, atonement's a hybrid. We'll start with atonement. Atonement is a combination of both, which is interesting, and probably has the most brutal villain of all these movies.
You thought Thanos was bad.
Talk about Briony. So Briony, this film is unique because it starts out with the Rashomon effect and then it becomes the embellisher. Again, spoilers, guys. Atonement. James McAvoy and Keira Knightley have a passionate affair that's been brewing for many years.
Come back to me.
And they have a moment. They have several moments leading up to a big moment. But everything's interpreted by Keira Knightley's sister Bryony in a malicious way. She's seeing everything from an outside perspective, not understanding what these situations are actually about. For example, the letter, the little note that McAvoy's character writes to Keira, he sent out the wrong one. The one he meant to say was very kind of sweet, but the one that went out was, "I dream about your CUNT. See you next Tuesday." Sorry. And that's what she read. And then the two of them have a moment outside of the fountain. Briony did not see that Keira broke the vase and she went down in the water to get the pieces that were broken and came back up, and the two of them had a moment. McAvoy looks away, not wanting to see her because her clothes are now see-through. But Briony, seeing from their window, looks at this as this guy is being malicious towards my sister, and that leads to her being confused when she sees two other characters during the search for the twins, two other characters in the woods, Benedict Cumberbatch and Juno Temple's characters being intimate together. She misconstrues it and believes that it's McAvoy taking advantage of the sister. And so she accuses him of misconduct. He is then sent away to the military against his own will, and it causes this course of events for both McAvoy and Keira's characters to never be reunited again, except for from distance and reuniting a couple of times just for days and here and there during the war. Ultimately, it's revealed that Bryony made those parts up because she realized the guilt and regret she had of misunderstanding the events of when she was a child. So as an adult, she wrote a story which gave them a happier ending of being together. Ultimately, their love coming together. But that was all an embellishment because her sister died in the tunnels, in the tubes during the bombings, and then McAvoy died at war. That's the reality. And so as a way of atoning for the mistakes she made as a child, she wrote this new fake story that lied about what happened. So it's a hybrid of both.
We ain't gonna get movies like that ever again, man.
Yeah. So Bryony,
based off a book,
she destroyed the lives of these two people. So in her novel, she's tried to create a story to bring them together.
Self-preservation. Bada bing. A lot of unreliable narrators who lie are in it for themselves. That's a form of self-preservation for herself to feel better and to atone, like you said. But there are some great liars and self-preservationists in our unreliable narrator films. I think one of the most iconic has to be Verbal Kint in The Usual Suspects, played by Kevin Spacey. A great twisty movie written by Christopher McQuarrie. This was best screenplay winner, and it is so well written, so well performed, great cast. But I think Verbal Kint steals the show by the time it's the third act. And what's so clever about Verbal Kint, and it swoofs so well in Scary Movie too, is he fabricates almost everything you're seeing is a fabrication. All these little details, improvised moments of not a confession, but an interrogation by detectives to cover who actually is Kaiser Soze. And the screenplay and the movie have little hints here and there of who Kaiser Soze is. But Kevin Spacey plays Verbal Kint. He's very timid. He's weak. He's got a limp. No one would possibly suspect this guy of being a mastermind.
It's pathetic. Yeah.
Exactly. But as an unreliable narration script, McQuarrie is hiding clues from the audience on purpose, which, in a way, a lot of unreliable narrated movies, you're manipulating your audience. Is that fair? Not always, but is it worth it and tells a great story with a great twist? Absolutely. A great example here of The Usual Suspects. You're withholding information from your audience. Little clues here and there, but it's a perfect way to hide the real twist. And the real twist is Verbal Kint is Kaiser Soze. And he's lying on the spot, tons of details about the story, about what happened on that boat, about who Kaiser Soze is to protect himself, to get let go. And then even the limp was all an act. Everything about the guy was an act. It's like The Prestige. You have to live your act. And by living his act, he's able to get away with a great crime.
Yeah, and even though the story's being told through Verbal's perspective that we think at first, we are Chaz Palminteri's character.
Yes. 100%.
We're taking in the story that he's feeding us, and it's the story that he's feeding the detective, played by Palminteri. And it gets to the point where what's so great about the film is when Palminteri realizes from the bottom of the coffee mug the first clue, and then he starts looking around his office and sees all these little names and stories and clippings from newspapers or posters or what have you. He's realizing that it's possible, and as an audience member, you're realizing it's possible the entire thing was a fabrication, and the course of events that really took place possibly were never even described to us in correct detail. He could have made the entire thing up. Yes, these criminals were involved, but still, it could be the fact that none of it happened the way that we think it happened. It all could have been a fabrication by Kaiser Soze. If you think
I think
about
the
it.
opening scene's like the real truth.
Yeah.
Of him blowing up the boat. That's true.
And they did put enough in where Kevin Spacey does play the shadowed figure of Kaiser Soze in the opening, in those scenes of either killing Gabriel Byrne or lighting him on fire or what have you. He does play that physically, and you do get to see with the little bit of light from the cigar and the lighter. We do get to see a little bit of Spacey's facial features, but it's just enough where we wouldn't believe that it's Verbal, because Verbal is such a contrast, the polar opposite of who you would imagine Kaiser Soze is. So they do a great job of Spacey in the scene, but then when we see Spacey, clearly he's this character that he's meek and physically impaired and just like a kind of a pathetic person. There's no way he was that guy on the boat.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. What a fucking line. And Kaiser's so fascinating. You know, it makes you reevaluate every scene when we're flashing back. And what he expertly does during his improvisation is interweaving these plots of sequences that happened. You know, there is evidence that these things happened, but he's deliberately falsifying information to make everyone else seem bad, to make everyone else seem questionable, to seem like suspects, to get suspicion off of him so he can walk right out that police station.
Oh, yeah. Next up, The Prestige.
Oh, man.
It's a great case of unreliable narrators and liars. Because this Prestige, the story is told through contrasting diaries, so contrasting narrators. And what's interesting is that Alfred and Freddie are misleading not only the audience, but they're misleading Angier through their diary. So Alfred's reading Angier's diary in prison, and then Angier's reading Alfred's diary as he's traveling to America and building the machine.
They both mislead each other in their diaries, actually.
Yeah. So, they're both misleading each other. And Alfred's biggest ploy is getting Angier to waste years and millions of dollars with Tesla building a machine that he tricked Tesla into thinking that he built for his transported man, when in fact, Alfred's transported man is done by the simplest way possible of having a double who's also his identical twin.
Massive misconception.
Yes.
I see all the time.
Still,
Tesla never built a machine for Alfred and Freddie. They are just identical twins. They're not clones. They did it on purpose to trick, like Anthony said, Angier into wasting time and money for a thing that would never work. But I don't think Alfred or Freddie ever predicted that Tesla would actually create a machine that would work.
Yes.
That's the fun. They never bought a machine from
They're poor.
Tesla.
Yeah, they
They're
could
not
barely
clones,
they could
they're
barely
twins.
survive.
The people still think that's what happened. It
Like,
blows my
it
mind.
doesn't
Have you
make
seen the
sense.
fucking movie?
He's living. They're living a very scattered, like scarce life. Like
Yeah.
they're barely making money. They're assistants for they're playing an assistant. As their job is assistant to a magician who has like 5 people in the audience. You think they could afford Tesla's money to pay Tesla to build a machine?
to clone.
No
themselves.
way,
No, so
not at all.
that's not true. That's true.
So
Truth.
Alfred and Freddie are misleading the audience as well as misleading Angier separately. It's interesting. You know what I mean? The unreliable
And
narrator.
Misleading Sarah.
Yeah, misleading Sarah. So lots of unreliability in that film.
Yeah, it's a really interesting plot, and you know it's very similar to Memento, you know, which he did before Batman Begins, Nolan, nonlinear storytelling. And what's interesting is, despite it being unreliable, the truth is revealed right in the opening sequence with Cutter and the bird, and the
Exactly.
trap. It's all there. All the information is
You
there.
have to
The
make 'em come
clues
back.
are there.
Yeah.
And you know, I love the Prestige. I adore it, and it's got a great twist. And yeah, it's a good one. Let's talk about one of the best liars when it comes to unreliable narrated movies, and that's Amy Dunn in Gone Girl.
Yes.
From David Fincher, adaptation of Gillian Flynn's novel. Dual unreliable narration roles. You know, we have Amy Dunn, whose diary entries after she goes missing paint her as an abused wife, whose husband Nick, played by Ben Affleck, his present day actions spell guilt all over his face because Amy has framed him for her eventual murder, which will actually be a suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And no, Amy's a really interesting character because of her life. She's grown up in a world where her parents wrote a best-selling series of novels about amazing Amy, a character who can do anything and accomplish anything. And Amy, her whole life, has had to compete with that, which she can't, which has created this interesting persona of somebody who is incredibly sharp and smart, and despite being an amazing person in terms of like being highly capable, highly intelligent, great pedigree, degrees, is still never good enough for her parents' eyes. But this led to her wanting to pursue somebody you could argue that she's better than in her eyes, with Nick Dunn. someone that she's smarter than, someone that she can have some power over in terms of the dynamic. But when everything goes according to plan in terms of their relationship, she wanted to end it. And she wants to end it with this calculated fabrication of murder, of Nick Dunn.
Pretty extreme way of doing it.
Committing her murder. But her diary is a trail of breadcrumbs of lies and manipulation of court of public opinion, but also opinion of detectives who are investigating what happened to her, because it all points to Nick. All these things, whether it's the anniversary clues, the wooden figurines stick, which is found, the puppet stick, and I think it's got one of the best twists, because the first time I was watching this movie, I never read the book. I thought that Nick killed Amy, and then it's that great midway point where he uncovers the garage full of toys and robots and TVs and cuts to black, and she's driving on a highway, and now she takes over as the narrator of the movie for a large portion of the film, which I thought was so fascinating and so interesting. And it's all planned so well. It's planned remarkably well until Amy has bad luck at the hotel and she gets robbed and she needs another way out, and then she plans another lie. So Amy is manipulative, horrifying in terms of willing to commit murder to get what she wants, but also lacks so much empathy. But it's hidden from the audience because she seems so perfect, but she's not.
Yeah, it's interesting as for the twist of the unreliable narrator's reveal, because her narration is used as exposition for the series of events that we'd already seen, but through the real perspective. And then her unreliable narration ends, and another hour and a half of movie takes place of her getting into her things going wrong for her plan and trying to get out of it, and then Nick Dunn taking some going on the offensive instead of the defensive. So it's interesting because it sets itself apart from any of these other movies where the twist is revealed at the end that she was unreliable. This is revealed halfway through that she's unreliable, and then the narration ends, and then it's both characters trying to weave their way through new obstacles that they didn't foresee, which is so different from any other movie on this list.
And it's a great example of the twist is midway, the unreliable narration's revealed midway, but the character for the rest of the movie gets to be herself.
Yes.
Which is fun. You know, I think of Tyler Durden. He's not really himself till the end of the movie after he blows a hole in his face with a handgun. Then he's finally who he is.
I'm fine. It's fine. It's
But
not as
Amy-
bad as it looks.
Get some gauze.
Get some gauze. One tough son of a bitch.
But Amy Dunn, she gets to be Amy Dunn the rest of the movie, like this supervillain.
Mm-hmm.
And whether or not what she's done is justified is debated online. I think it's pretty fun to debate. You know,
I don't think murdering MPH is justified.
Well, no, and I know, but people believe it. You know, people are like, oh, I would do the same thing to my husband if he milked me for everything I had. It was cheating on me.
Damn.
You know, is it justified? You know, that's subjective. Murder's not great. But I think because of everything that's gone on in Amy Dunn's life, it's pushed her to this point of I've never been able to be fulfilled in terms of what I can do. Maybe I'm meant to be like a master criminal after all. And you know what? If I'm going to take my own life, I might as well take my cheating piece of shit husband with me.
I will say murder's never justified.
No, but
you see what led her to that.
Yeah.
She was desperate. She was very desperate.
But it's a liar she's omitting truths. She's leaving clues that aren't real.
Yeah.
Lying in her diary, rewriting everything that happened in her diary from her perspective of now I'm going to commit this crime. Let me rewrite the past. Mm-hmm. It's interesting.
One of my favorite films in this category of the liar is Hero, starring Jet Li. This is a really great Chinese film we saw in theaters fucking back in the day. That movie fucking ripped. It's a great martial arts movie, incredibly huge set pieces and great action sequences and amazing fights. This is a story about a warrior who shows up at the emperor's temple claiming to have killed the 3 most dangerous assassins who were the biggest threats to the emperor. And the emperor, curious about the man, decides to entertain him. And subsequently, Jet Li tells a story of each account of how he killed each one of these assassins who were threats to the emperor. And with each story that he tells, the emperor allows him to come closer to him. So at first, the emperor keeps him at the edge of the temple. Tell me the first story. And so Jet Li accounts the first story of the first assassin he killed. And enjoying the story, once it's over, the emperor allows him to come closer to hear the next story. Jet Li tells the next story of how he killed the second assassin who was a threat to the emperor. Being happy about this news, the emperor, okay, come closer. Now you can come within 100 paces of me to tell me the third story of the third assassin who was a threat to me that you killed. After Jet Li tells this story, the emperor trusts him enough to come even closer. And this is where the twist is revealed that Jet Li is himself an assassin, and the entire series of stories were fabrications to get this close to the emperor, which he then carries out his own assassination plot of killing the emperor, and then he's swarmed by the emperor's army and has to fight his way out. It's a really fantastic version of the Unreliable Narrator, of a character who's lying to both the audience and the emperor in the film, but it's in a way it's justified because it's the only way to get that close to the emperor. So I love it because he's not doing it maliciously for the audience. He's doing it as a way as this is the only way to get close enough to the emperor to carry out a killing blow.
I remember being like 11 watching that. I'm like, oh my God.
It's so good.
Great
like,
twist.
It's so sick. Fucking awesome.
I want to talk about The Wolf of Wall Street. Jordan Belfort, played by Leo. Is he an unreliable narrator? I think he is to an extent. You know, he's someone who's telling the story looking on his past, narrating. From the beginning of the movie, we don't know it yet, but he's already been arrested. He's done all this stuff, and he's like talking about everything that happened in the past. And is he falsifying facts? Probably. Is he hyping himself up to be more than he is? Yes, I'm sure. Even he gets things like the Ferrari color wrong, so stuff like that. So I think that Jordan Belfort's a character whose charisma and his charm allures the audience to relate to his story and be excited and want to watch the story, despite him doing terrible things of robbing, cheating, doing drugs, committing crimes. You put all that away because as a narrator, he's telling the story from a perspective of great charisma and unreliability that it makes him seem like he's not that bad of a guy.
It's not, I mean, and you could also say something similar for Goodfellas where mafia insiders claim that Henry Hill wasn't as connected as he claimed to be.
Oh, yeah,
and he
for
might
sure.
have talked himself up.
But maybe he was, and that's just their way
Maybe
of
he
saying,
was.
oh, yeah, none of that was true.
Yeah, so even Henry Hill is like, was he really reliable in his story? Or did he embellish stuff to make himself seem more important and more entertaining?
Yeah, it's a good
in
point.
a way. All right, this is a great film from Stanley Kubrick, controversial novel, Lolita, but it's a perfect example of the unreliable narrator. So Humbert, we see, is he's on trial for possible crimes he's committed, and he's telling his story to a jury. And he's being persecuted for taking advantage of and abusing a young girl. This is the girl who he moved in with the girl's mother and immediately fell madly in love with this girl. Now, what's interesting about the unreliable nature aspect of the story is how he's trying to convince the jury that what he did, his horrible actions, which objectively were terrible actions, he's trying to defend himself by changing the perspective of his actions, and he's changing the framing of the perspective of his story to try and make himself seem better. So rather than just being persecuted for taking advantage of a young girl, he's trying to tell the jury, oh no, I was in love with her. She was the most important thing to me. It was sweet. It was a loving relationship. And so Lolita is a perfect example of the unreliable narrator, where he's trying to save his own skin by defending his heinous actions through a skewed lens. And it's a perfect example of this category, of the liar.
All right, I think we finish up with one big one left. How do you feel about that?
For liars?
for Unreliable Narrators.
I got a few others.
You got a few others?
Oh yeah.
Well, how about I want to do a massive Unreliable Narrator.
Let's hear it.
And this is the supernatural kind.
Yes.
The Sixth Sense, 1999, M. Night Shyamalan. Dr. Malcolm Crowe, played by Bruce Willis. Such a great supernatural thriller. He plays a child psychologist who is narrating sessions with this young boy who claims to see dead people. And Cole, Haley Joel Osment's character, is seeing dead people everywhere he goes.
I see dead people.
Now, the way the film is shot and written and depicted is we're really unaware that Malcolm Crowe is actually a ghost. We think he's a real man interacting with Cole.
And we think he survived the opening scene
Yeah,
of being
he
shot.
survived the attack, getting shot in the opening scene, but he's really spending the time as a ghost talking with Cole. And it's when you go back on, this is a movie that deserves multiple rewatches because the filmmaking is so clever in terms of whenever Malcolm's in a room with Cole, if he's with his wife, their hands aren't touching. You know, if Cole's mother's in the room, she's not looking at Malcolm, not even really noticing his presence.
Not interacting. Yeah.
He's there, but not there. Cole's the only one that notices him and interacts with him, despite there are situations like he just shows up in their house sometimes and it's like, oh, the mom must let him in. But it's really clever filmmaking to deceive the audience for a generational twist film. This movie, when it came out in 1999, holy fuck, the word of mouth.
And
everyone was talking.
in a packed year like that, this was the most talked about movie.
In The Matrix 2.
Yeah.
Everyone was talking about this film. Anthony and I were 8, 9 years old, and we were aware of The Sixth Sense has a crazy twist. Like, that was the buildup. Like, you got to go see this movie. It has the craziest twist. And I love that old world because no one would spoil the twists for you. You didn't go on Instagram and actually see a twist
There
for a
weren't
movie.
16 different people on Reels from one scroll talking about it.
Not to say we haven't spoiled movies before. We have, sure, here and there for people. But I mean,
older movies.
this is great. But what's so cool about, I think, The Sixth Sense is the audience is complicit in this delusion because you're a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
You believe it. It's such an interesting position to put your audience in, and such a devastating twist that you never saw coming. I mean, some people, I saw it coming the whole time.
Bullshit.
BS. Not only is it a great unreliable narrator, but it explores denial. It explores grief. The unreliability is gentle. It's not an attack. It's not, I'm a serial killer. It's not manipulation. It's an unreliable narrator who doesn't know what he is. And because he's trying to help this young boy, it's gentle. It's soft. It's not malicious, like I said. And that fact that it's a ghost story and the realization of himself being a ghost is so powerful because we're with him so much. And it's just, I think, a special, special film.
And to bounce off that, we have The Others, starring Nicole Kidman. And it's very similar. This woman and her 2 young children move into a big, scary home. And they start hearing strange people and occurrences. And her kids start communicating with a ghost boy named Victor. And there's the creepy groundskeepers and the maid. And everything seems strange. And they're hearing these crazy noises in the home. And they don't know what's going on. Doors are slamming. Voices here and there. And then eventually, the big twist is revealed where they finally see these people who are carrying out a seance with a clairvoyant. And the twist is revealed that this family, Nicole Kidman and her children, are actually ghosts. And they've been haunting this family in this home. And the real family hired a clairvoyant to reveal themselves. And so it's been revealed that they died many years ago, and they will be the new eternal residents of this home as ghosts. Fantastic twist. Similar, obviously, to The Sixth Sense, but done, I think, in a very unique way, much different, to make it feel unique from The Sixth Sense. I love the film. I love the twist. And then let's finally talk about the Rashomon effect, the conflicting perspectives of one story and one event. Really, Rashomon by Akira Kurosawa paved the way for this kind of story and this kind of unreliable narration where it's multiple unreliable narrators, not done maliciously, but it tells the story of one event, usually a crime, which are then seen and told through the events of different people, and seeing how the perspectives of each story can change based upon the storyteller. So Rashomon tells a story of a sexual assault told from the perspective of 3 different characters, and how all those stories vary to the point where the audience isn't ultimately sure which story is true, which version of the events is true. And this is a story that created the term the Rashomon effect.
Yeah, it's interesting because it showcases, like you talked about earlier, humans aren't perfect. Our memories aren't perfect. They're always biased. It's going to expose tendencies towards ego, shame, deception, making yourself appear better, whether you're the character that the bandit who claims he's a warrior, who's honorable really, or the other characters. We have the woodcutter who witnesses, who claims he's just an objective observer. So we have great perspectives of a story of what really happened, altered to their perspectives themselves.
And then the last duel from Ridley Scott is a perfect cousin to Rashomon, where we have another sexual assault story, but seen through the lens of different characters. We see it through Adam Driver's perspective. I mean, first Matt Damon's perspective, where the news of his wife being assaulted by Adam Driver is almost an offense against him. And we see the perspective that he feels his honor has been affected, and he takes on the duel as himself trying to be a heroic figure. He sees himself as a hero who was wronged by Adam Driver. Nothing to do with his wife's perspective.
Ironically,
Yes.
the wife's perspective is the truth, but he
Yes.
ends up the hero anyways because he wins the duel.
Yes, exactly.
And she's forgotten.
And then Adam Driver's perspective is, she was asking for it. We had a connection because from her perspective, she was trying to, be friends with your enemy. Let's try and save face with Adam Driver's character. So she's pleasant towards him, but he takes her pleasantries as being affections towards him. And so he feels justified in taking advantage of her. And then we finally see her perspective where she's a victim of both these evil men, and she's just trying to have her truth told, but nobody will listen to the truth in her eyes. Excellent version of it. And then we also have Monster, the Japanese film, where a conflict and a violent act takes place amongst young children in a school, and it's told through the perspectives of the teacher, 2 of the children, and a parent. And we can see through this not only the different perspectives, but the tragic truth of the story. I don't want to spoil this one. This one, you got to watch Monster. It's heartbreaking. And then I, Tonya, not exactly a triptych, but I, Tonya is told through this kind of mockumentary kind of feel where various characters in Tanya's story are telling their version of events, which often contradict each other and also paint themselves in better light. So even as an audience member, you're not fully sure what exactly happened in this story. And this is an accounts of more than just 3 characters.
Couple other ones. A Beautiful Mind. Russell Crowe's
Yes.
character John Nash has hallucinations which really make his reality unreliable. And then Life of Pi also is another kind of honorable mention of unreliable narration.
You're not sure if the story is even true or not.
Yeah.
Pi tells a journalist, I'll tell you a story that makes you believe in God. But then by the end of the tale, either these events did happen with the tiger and the animals, or Pi was just by himself on that boat. You don't really know for sure. And it's about the story you choose to believe as a listener.
Yeah. Man, I love a good unreliable narrator.
It's good. It's good stuff.
That was a lot of great discussion.
Are
man.
we reliable narrators? I
Maybe
think
we've been unreliable
Did
this
we
whole
embellish
time.
anything?
Who knows? Thanks for joining and listening to this episode, everybody. It was a lot of fun to talk about the unreliable narrators from film and cinema. There's so many more. Let us know which unreliable narrators are your favorite in the comments below on YouTube or on Spotify, or leave us comments on Instagram. We'd love to check them out. In the meantime, do all the things that help our show. Patreon.com/Raiders of a Lost Podcast. Go there today. Sign up. 5-star ratings, reviews on Spotify and Apple. Commenting, liking, following us on social media, engaging with our content, sharing us in your stories, sharing our content with your friends, sending it to the DMs, guys. That's how we get the cool jobs and the cool experiences that we get to share with you all. So keep engaged with the content. And in the meantime, take care.
See you next time.
This episode was executive produced by our chosen one patrons, Nicholas Martin and Jacob Kostler. Raiders of the Lost podcast is a mirror image production.